Hello and welcome to the second section of my course, and here we will deep dive and dissect a line chart. And in this video we will go through do's and don'ts of creating a line chart. So let's start with when to use a line chart. By far the most common use case for a line chart is to plot a progression of some value over a period of time, and it is called time series. Horizontal axis shows a period of time and vertical axis is a numerical value that we are plotting here. Important thing is that there should be as many data points as possible. The more data points, the better our line chart is. There are other use cases of a line on a visualization. For example, you can put line on a map to visualize a route, like this map of my run that I took some years ago. We can also connect points on a point chart or a scatter plot if we have dates in our dataset. Another use case of a line chart is a slope graph. It is useful when we have two data points with multiple categories. However, all of these cases are out of the scope of this course. I will focus on the most ubiquitous use case when our chart has a datetime on horizontal axis and numeric value on a vertical axis. Now let's explore when to avoid line chart. Of course, avoid line chart when your dataset doesn't have time dimension. Especially try to avoid categorical variables when you use line chart. In this case, use different chart type that will suit your dataset better. Also, avoid line chart when you have a few data points, like in this chart that you see right now. It has time dimension, numerical value, but there are just too few data points for a line chart to be meaningful. So either add more data points if possible, use different chart type, or don't use visualization at all, use table or use a plain text. Many visualization tools often automatically create axis label. Now let's see what we should avoid when we build a line chart. Year labels are horizontal, bottom to top. Try to avoid it. Most of us read horizontally and typically from left to right. Use natural reading flow in your visualizations as often as possible. Also avoid cluttered labels. You can see such labels created automatically by your visualization tool. This makes axis labels unreadable and useless in our context. Also be careful with markers on your line chart. In a chart like this, markers often add more clutter and distort your message. And finally, be extra careful with the line styles. Very often they add nothing but confusion. Here, for example, dashed line styles confuses us and it gives an impression that there are more blanks in a dataset than they are in real life. And now let's discuss what makes line chart better. First, of course, things covered in previous section will work great in line chart as well. Make a good title, use appropriate formatting of our axis labels, and also make axis readable. All these things will always improve your line chart. Also, line chart will work better when you add a reference, something to compare with. For example, here on this chart, it is interesting, of course, to see how unemployment rate in Italy developed over the last 45 years, but it's even more interesting to compare the same thing with Italy's neighbors, France, and immediately you see the chart is more engaging and meaningful. Another thing that makes chart more engaging is to highlight interesting data points. It could be minimum or maximum of our line chart, but also we can do like this here in this chart and highlight the latest data point in our dataset. We can also highlight interesting areas. For example, here I highlighted periods of economic crisis, one in 1990s and another one is economic crisis in 2008 and 2009. We can see that a long period of rising unemployment followed both economic crises. And last but not least, don't be afraid to use text annotations. For example, a classic use case of that is to put a note about data sources to add more credibility to your chart. And this concludes the first video of the section about line charts.